Sticking behind Saudi Arabia following the killing of columnist Jamal Khashoggi, who was critical of the kingdom. The president releasing a statement saying, in part, after my heavily negotiated trip to Saudi Arabia last year, the kingdom agreed to spend and invest $450 billion in the United States. Our intelligence agencies continue to assess all information, but it could very well be that the Crown Prince had knowledge of this tragic event. Maybe he did and maybe he didn't. They have worked closely with us and have been very responsive to my requests to keeping oil prices at reasonable levels, so important for the world. Congressman Adam Kinzinger is a Republican from Illinois who sits on the House Foreign Affairs Committee, a veteran as well, and I wondered if you could give your initial thoughts since this statement came out just about 20 minutes ago.
I don't like the statement. I like the results. I wish this statement would have been about a page and a half of how terrible this act is and how bad it is and how, as Americans, we believe in the freedom of press and human rights and human dignity. But I think the results were correct. The interesting thing in this whole debate, there are folks that want to strategically realign our relationship with Saudi Arabia right now, and they claim it's because of this incident. If you actually look at the people that are calling for this, their opposition to Saudi Arabia didn't start 2 months ago. Right. It started basically when they got in politics. So there's something else driving this. And then you look at Russia, you look at Iran, you look at what they're doing in Syria. 500,000 dead Syrians, 50,000 of them are kids. Russia seemingly every day kills journalists in Moscow. They killed 2 people in the United Kingdom, all at the direction of Vladimir Putin. So to come in and say that now, because this one journalist, as terrible as it is, was killed, we have to basically disown Saudi Arabia is not thinking strategically in foreign policy, to say the least. Right.
It is obviously a complex decision. The President of the United States has to have a different calculation than anybody else because the sole responsibility for the safety of the American people rests with him. I wanted to read to you a tweet from John Brennan, though, because, as you can imagine, he was quite critical. He said, since Mr. Trump excels in dishonesty, it is now up to members of Congress to obtain and declassify the CIA findings on Jamal Khashoggi's death. No one in Saudi Arabia, most especially the Crown Prince, should escape accountability for such a heinous act. How would that go down at the Foreign Relations Committee as Democrats take over the majority in January?
I mean, they'll probably try to do it, and they're going to try to do it because they want to use this to embarrass the president. The president said, I wish he didn't say he either knew or didn't know. I don't like that part of the statement. But the president at least is acknowledging that the Crown Prince likely knew about it, probably actually ordered it. I don't know what's going to change that by declassifying a CIA report. We've gotten too much. By the way, this is my party and the other party. Too much we're using intel, declassifications, things like that as a political tool and not what it's been there for, which is to protect national security interests of the United States. The president made the right decision here, and I'm afraid that there are going to be people, frankly, on the far right and definitely in the Democratic Party that are going to use this to just simply try to discredit and embarrass his foreign policy.
Take a listen. Also, I wanted to ask you about this because Mike Pompeo made some other news regarding Interpol.
You've seen that Interpol is electing a new president. It's an important organization. We strongly endorse Kim Jong-yang, who is serving as its acting president. We encourage all nations and organizations that are part of Interpol and that respect the rule of law to choose a leader with credibility and integrity that reflects one of the world's most critical law enforcement bodies. We believe Mr. Kim will be just that.
So what Secretary Pompeo didn't say there, Congressman, is that the U.S. is opposing the Russian nominee to lead the Interpol, citing Russian abuses. Again, right decision?
Absolutely. I mean, Mike Pompeo, obviously a friend of mine, great guy. This is a no-brainer. Russia is basically like the fox guarding the hen house. They should not have a Russian in charge of Interpol. They're among the biggest international law violators. As we mentioned earlier, they murder people all the time. Putting Russia in charge of Interpol will not just be stupid, it will actually take away the whole credibility of the organization and should be stopped.
Congressman Adam Kinzinger, thanks for being here today.